I've been boots on the ground in many countries across the planet for going into my third decade. Our clients include the Coca-Cola Company, Tom's Shoes, Microsoft, Nike, IBM, Starbucks, Oracle, NASA, Yale University, and I could just go on and on. The larger point is simply this: what you're going to learn and what I'd love to walk you through and deconstruct in this episode doesn't come from a few books I've read or a few conversations I've had. It comes from my work with the best companies on the planet and me privately coaching for over 2 decades a lot of the billionaires that you read about in the famous magazines. The first thing that makes a world-class company is a mighty mission. I wrote a book many years ago called Leadership Wisdom from the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and one of the first chapters in there was Link Paycheck to Purpose, Find Your Compelling Cause. So the larger point is simply this: clarity breeds mastery. If you look at Nike, one of our clients, they literally know exactly what needs to happen for the next many, many years so that they can strip away complexity and focus on clarity. Confucius said it even more elegantly than I ever could when he said, "Man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither." Another key insight on this first point about a mighty mission: what makes a great company is less about your good opportunities and a lot more about you having the bravery and discipline to say no to your many good opportunities. What destroys a great company is actually opportunity bloating, too many good opportunities. So literally you diffuse your team's bandwidth and you get distracted. And you see with so many companies right now, they sort of found their sweet pocket and they were absolutely winning in their marketplace. And they decided to go, we've got this app that is really changing the game and owning the marketplace. Let's get into food delivery. Let's get into this. Let's get into that. It happened to General Electric as well. And you probably know they decided at one point, if we can't be 1 or 2 in any market, we're going to get out of that market. That's the key point I'm trying to make. Know your mighty mission, know your monomaniacal focus, and then have the discipline to say no to everything else so you can lock and load on your finest opportunity to completely change the game. Number 2, what makes a world-class company is what I teach at my live events in a model called Your Team of Picassos. And I must tell you, this model alone has created empires for many of my clients. Bill Gates was asked what was the winning formula of Microsoft when Microsoft was really the heavyweight champion of their industry. I think they're a little lost right now, but the larger point again is he replied with this: what made Microsoft Microsoft was not our software. What made Microsoft Microsoft was our hiring. I just want to suggest to you the second point or trait of a world-class company is their ability to hire A players. Here is the brain tattoo I want you to absolutely hardwire into your business philosophy as a leader. You cannot build an A-level company with C-level talent. If your company is not winning in your field right now, you likely have weaknesses in your hiring. Don't just hire people because it's the easiest move to make. A lot of companies spend very little time on hiring and then most of their time managing their hiring mistakes. And you know, if you're building a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a manager, if you're a CEO, like a lot of the people who watch these mastery sessions and come to my live events, you know I'm speaking truth here. That brings us to trait number 3. You want to, if you want to have a world-class company, release only magic. Another way I could put it, only release Sistine Chapel ceiling level products to the world. Steve Jobs said it beautifully. He said, I wanted the icons on the iPhone to be so beautiful, people would want to lick the screen. I had a senior leader show up at one of my leadership events and he said, you know, Robin, Steve Jobs was like that. I actually went to his house and met him shortly before he died, and he didn't look very well, but he didn't want to talk about his physical condition. He just wanted to talk about the product we were launching. He was so monomaniacally focused on the user experience. He literally wanted everything to be flawless. That was Steve Jobs' brilliance and obsession. I saw an incredible interview with Johnny Ive by Charlie Rose. And in that, Johnny Ive, who you know is the design genius behind a lot of the Apple products, he said, you know, I knew Steve Jobs and I were spiritual brothers when we were in a store one day. And Steve Jobs said to me, he goes, hey, come on over, Johnny, you got to see this. And I believe from the interview, I believe this is what they said, but they were looking at an arrow. And Steve Jobs said, look at how the sharp point of the arrow is attached to this part, and look how seamless it is, and look at the engineering, and I wonder how they did that. And Johnny Ive said Steve Jobs was just in the pocket of the engineering and beauty behind that piece of artistry they were looking at. So point number 3, or trait number 3 of a world-class company, they only put out pure poetry. Now this is again what I call a gargantuan competitive advantage for your organization, because we live in a world of superficiality. We live in a world of people looking for quick cash versus saying, how can we spend many years getting one product right so literally it blows people's minds? You know what? Here's what Steve Jobs learned in the wilderness when he was out at Pixar, when he was kicked out of Apple. He learned that Pixar spent 3 years per movie. Toy Story changed the game because they spent 3 years on it at Pixar. And then the way Pixar worked was they spent another 3 years on the next animated movie. And so when he went back to Apple, he brought that mindset and philosophy to Apple. And you know about the famous meeting where when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, they were literally 90 days away from bankruptcy. And in a famous meeting, he literally got all of the products Apple had, you know, peripherals and this and printers and computers. And he said, let's strip away all of this complexity and let's focus on one primary product, which was the iMac. That's really what brought Apple back to life. And then it was every 3 years a new product, the iMac, and then the iPod, and then the iPad, and then the iPhone. It was that monomaniacal focus and obsessiveness over a long period of time that brought Apple to world class once again, okay? And then trait number 4, world-class user experience. A lot of our clients and a lot of the companies I've worked with are exponentially growing technology companies. And these tech companies use a term called user experience. And if you look at a lot of the social media apps, they're constantly innovating to make your interface and your user experience more friendly. And that was one of the beautiful things about Apple, again, under Steve Jobs. He was so fanatical about the user experience. So you look at a lot of these social apps and they're constantly improving the colors, the usability. They make it easier. They make it more intuitive. That's a key word. See, your job as a business builder and empire creator is to bring on products to your marketplace that your base fall in love with. See, your job is really to create what I call a global base of fanatical followers who would not dream of doing business with anyone other than you. And part of the way you can do it is to bring on products so beautiful, so wow, that people fall in love with them. They create a cult around your products. Trait number 5 of world-class companies, the best companies I work with, what I call full-on human connection. Another gargantuan competitive advantage for you to literally achieve industry dominance. That's a great word I want you to be thinking about every single day and share with your team. Industry dominance. It's a great opportunity because most organizations have lost the human connection right now. You go into a lot of cafes. You go into a lot of stores. You walk into a hotel. Very often you walk into a hotel or you're a restaurant, and the person who is at the front of the house doesn't even look at you in the eye anymore. They don't even smile anymore. They don't even acknowledge you anymore. The person who is at the front of your shop should be masterful, and they don't need training. You want to hire people who love people. A lot of times I will go into a restaurant or a hotel and I will wonder, why are you in the hospitality business when it's obvious you don't even like human beings? So hire people who naturally love people, who naturally smile when they see another human being, who want to engage, who are in their hearts, who have high emotional IQ, who look people in the eye, who love to bring people into their restaurant, who love their food. So the point I'm trying to make to you on trait number 5 is your organization absolutely must, if you want to win in today's marketplace, have people at the front of the house and your user experience where there's a full-on human connection.